Matt's the only one wearing a branded shirt as we talk about brand apparel. He's the only guy.
Well,
It's hoodie season, man.
you and I are on brand as far as nerd is concerned. So.
Well, I try to cover the bases.
Yeah,
here.
nice.
Yeah. I mean,
Posters?
yeah,
Do not see.
that's true. Yeah.
We're talking about
You
apparel.
actually, yeah, Laura's got, let me just open the show officially.
Sounds like
Hey
a plan.
everybody, it's Friday and welcome to the NerdBrand Podcast. I'm Jason, that's Laura, that's Matt, that's Mitch, and we're going to talk about elements of storytelling part 2. And today's show is going to focus on a couple things like theme and dialogue. So let's get started. So there we go. There's the opener. So yeah.
So here we are.
Yeah. So the last show was plot and character. And plot basically is like, what's the point? If you watch a movie, what's the point? We all hate watching movies where we're like, what happened? What was that for? I just wasted 2 hours on that. Character is also something we hate. When characters aren't developed, you're kind of like, well, I didn't really care about any of those people.
Right.
Why were they there?
Why were they there? What was going on? So it all kind of relates to business. Why does your business exist? What you're passionate about? People are attracted to people that are passionate. They're not attracted to things. And in 2020, I'm absolutely convinced that branding, especially from a personal standpoint, is going to be paramount. And it's going to be something that if you want to connect to your audience, that famous marketing word, then, you want to make sure that it's you and find ways to do that to show you. Even if you're a backwards individual and shy, it's time to kind of come out and show the world how you do you. But before we get started about that part of the show and get into the next part of this, Mitch has some stuff to share, particularly about marketing terms.
Well, and it's not unrelated from, the whole idea of authenticity and, showcasing your brand and being on message. For a long, long time, and I've had this discussion with people, I hate jargon. And somebody I really looked up to in the advertising world was David Ogilvy. And David Ogilvy basically thought that jargon was a horrible, horrible idea because it basically, his thought was, and I can't remember the exact quote, but something to the effect that jargon is basically just a way to confuse people when you don't really know what you're talking about.
Kind of pretty words together and you sound smart.
That's right. That's right. How to sound smart when you need to, and the people around you won't be able to see through it. It's just use jargon. Kind of related to that is buzzwords. And, buzzwords are those words that, we kind of hear ever so often. They become kind of woven into the popular conversation, and you start to hear them so often that you just kind of get tired of hearing them and you really don't want to hear them anymore. Kind of, you hear that and you're like, gag.
Yep.
Anyway, Ad Age published an article called The 13 Worst Buzzwords and Phrases of 2020, the pandemic edition.
Okay.
So I thought these are pretty good, and I thought I'd share them with you guys and with the audience.
Right.
Coming in first, oddly enough, is the word human. In marketing parlance, throwing the word human out all the time, as if marketing was designed for anyone other than humans.
Yeah,
Okay.
and they like to say, humanize. Let's humanize that.
Right.
Let's humanize that.
Okay. Yeah, you might want to give some examples in context, as I'm sitting here going like, what?
Well, and their article, and actually the next buzzword is sort of related to that, but it says human. It once went without saying the humans were what marketers were after. No more. People were saying, quote, human over and over at the, quote, Association of National Advertisers, Masters of Marketing virtual conference in October. In fairness, there's actually a respectable reason for using the word as an alternative to, quote, consumers or, quote, customers, or other terms that objectify people in purely transactional terms.
Yeah, who wrote this article, by the way?
This is in Ad Age.
Well, it's at Ad Age, but yeah, but who was the guy that?
The author of this article was Jack Neff.
Okay, great. Give him a plug.
Give him a plug.
Yeah, give him a proper plug for writing this. Don't read the whole thing though, because I mean,
right, exactly.
Look that up, Mitch. But
here's the salient point. Here's the salient point. Marketers risk getting labeled themselves as really weird if they keep talking about marketing to humans, because marketing, who else is it going to go to?
The dog that's watching TV all day while he's
I guess that's the
away.
alternative.
I don't know. Aliens. Grace.
Buzzword.
My cat watches TV.
Yeah,
Now I've heard.
was pretty offended by that.
Yeah. Somebody's dog out there that sits in front of TV all the time is like, oh.
One ear went up.
Yeah. You're like, wait a minute. I love those trail mix ads, or I don't know what. It's bacon.
Okay. Buzzword number 2, and actually there's 2 of them. You know, we've all heard B2B, B2C.
Mm-hmm.
Well, apparently what's been popping up quite frequently is B to H and B4H. B number 4H. Now, B to H, what do you guys think that stands for?
Context
B4.
clues.
Business to human.
Yeah.
Okay. B4H. B number 4H.
B4H.
Before humans.
I don't know. I know my alphabet pretty well from that song, so I know that B comes before H.
It's about business being for humans, because marketing is really just a multi-trillion-dollar philanthropic endeavor,
I
right?
was in the neighborhood.
Obviously.
So those 2 more buzzwords that popped up in 2020 that people are kind of tired of.
The bad thing is that when you say the number 4, you don't see the number 4. So
Right.
their little acronym that's challenging because it should be BFH.
In some way, and that's another thing about this.
That means something else in engineering, by the way.
Oh yeah. Well,
We won't go into those acronyms.
We're not going to say the word on the show here because this is not an X-rated.
There might be
show.
children present. Yes.
Yeah. It goes back to the whole jargon thing. I mean, if you sit around, I sit around sometimes and you listen in a meeting of marketing people, and you just listen to the acronyms, the buzzwords, and the jargon, and you just hear it. And if you divorce yourself from it as a professional and just listen to it as an observer, you're like, this sounds insane. Who are these people talking to? Who talks like this?
They become talking heads to me, and I'm just like, blah, 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 blah. The more jargon you use, the more I hear blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. There's nothing meaningful there's really nothing meaningful there. I hate using jargon, and sometimes I fail to realize I'm doing it because I actually know what the words mean. So I'll say them, and then I'm realizing that they think I'm doing jargon, and I'm actually not. So I have to that's why I do like analogies so dang much, because it's to me, it's the most relatable thing you can do in speaking to somebody about, what it is that we do. Because honestly, and I don't necessarily blame marketers, maybe as much as that article says. I blame salespeople, frankly, because they don't know maybe the product as well as they should, and they were just kind of brought on to kind of sell it. I mean, it's not the easiest kind of sale, but the easiest kind of sales is probably the one where you have a sheet and this is what things are worth, and you're selling, stuff that's on a floor in a car lot, frankly, and this is what my cost is, this is what I got to get for it, and that's it. In our world, that is not true. Like, we had somebody recently come to us and say, how much do you guys charge for doing a custom WordPress site? I'm like, that's like asking me how much a car is. I don't know. I mean,
do you want a Toyota? Do you want a Ferrari?
Yeah. I mean, if you really demand that you give a price, and I'll give it to you here on the show, anywhere between $2,500 to $250,000. There you go. And there's a lot of listeners right now that just went, I don't care, because it's like, you have your website is not just a bunch of web pages. It's all the content you got to make. It's the videos you have to make to put on the site, the articles, the imagery, the artwork, the strategy that goes into what you're trying to do with it. All ties to the branding. But anyways, Mitch, please continue. What other buzzwords make people ill?
Hold that thought, because there's something relatable come up here shortly.
Okay.
Yes, indicator.
And the next buzzword is unprecedented.
Oh my God.
Unprecedented. Ask yourself, I think we all can relate. How many times between January and now have you heard the word unprecedented?
It's been unprecedented.
Yes.
It's been unprecedentedly used.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're
Not to be confused with unprecedented.
well, that's a whole other topic of conversation.
For a podcast.
Yeah. Well, it's to me, and the article actually mentions this, and I'll give a quote to that here in a second. You hear unprecedented, and it says like never, ever, 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 ever before. Okay. Well, let's see. The Earth is how many billions of years old
Right.
alone? Human history is how many millions of years old?
Yeah, we keep finding new stuff that tells us that our calendar, when we think humans started,
Yeah, there's that again.
keeps getting older and older. I mean, there's a lot of archaeological discoveries that have, dictated that. So
I mean, unprecedented. It's purely it's a matter of perspective. Maybe unprecedented within the span of your lifetime, but anyway. But the article states that sadly these times aren't entirely unprecedented. And they mentioned the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918, 1919, and the Black Death. So
yeah, that whole thing.
yeah, I mean, and granted, the birth of the use of unprecedented in our current time is because of the pandemic. But take a breath, back up, and this is to me, this is one of the pitfalls in marketing is we tend to lose perspective sometimes on the scope of things, because the scope of history is basically within our narrow view of our own lifetime.
Yeah, well, I think sometimes now that's actually gotten even narrower. There's been a lot of conversations I've had, and Matt, maybe this is something for you to chime in on and tell us, because you are the youngin here. I mean, the rest of us were born like in the 70s here. We've seen tons. Like I wasn't around to experience Jimmy Carter. Let me just frame that. But Mitch was, and Laura. I was around long enough to see the Reagan years. And then my first time voting ever was with Bill Clinton. And so, that's kind of like, I remember those things that happened. And when I see people talk about those things today, we do kind of rewrite our own history in a way, because our memories are not great. Memory is the worst thing actually ever. Just talk to your friend and say like, hey, do you remember when we did that? And they're going to look at you like, no, dude, we went there and we did this instead. What are you getting that from? Happens all the time. But, when you've lived through enough, like, for example, I remember when the first iPhone showed up. I remember the first iPad. I remember when responsive design, I first discovered it in 2010 by opening up a theme club and looking at its website on my phone and realizing that, well, that's different. So, but from your, perspective, I mean, there's things that, Matt, that when you were born, like, how often do you think your generation retains the last, I don't know, 3 years of events or 4 years of events in comparison to older generations where we kind of could go back 20 years and go, oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, no, I think even to say 3 years can be sort of overshooting it. Like people my age, for those listening, I'm technically Gen Z 97, but it's like the past year is what is all that seems to matter, since February, since April, since the pandemic. It's like before that, life didn't exist. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, it's entirely different, because maybe there are other people like me out there who would like to be able to look back and have a real grasp on what life is like now versus what it was, or like, that it's not the end of the world. This is not actually an unprecedented time, but it's like, yeah, it's weird being my age right now. But.
Well, think about it. My husband's grandfather was born, I think, in 1912.
You can probably turn your mic up, Laura. Sorry, it's hard to hear you.
He was born in like 1912, and so he saw cars come into being. He saw planes come into being. Prior to any of the technology that we look at and handle daily and take for granted, he saw them come into being in his lifetime. And if you take a look back and you really think about what didn't exist when I was a kid, it can boggle you a little bit. Technology is moving so quickly. And, if you get into AI and robotics, there's some weird, crazy stuff going on. And, that wasn't even fathomed 50 years ago.
Yeah. If you kind of look at like Stanley Kubrick's 2001 film and then the follow-up 2010, and I mean, they had spaceship. The whole idea they had space. They would sleep, and they were going to spaceships. They were going to Jupiter, and the spaceships were powered by nuclear energy. And today we're like we're already talking about like stuff that like gravitational powered craft. Like you're pushing. It's not like something that is pushing the craft. It's something the craft is pushing, causing that acceleration, which is a completely different concept. So yeah, propulsion and things like that, and artificial intelligence. I mean, right now in marketing, a lot of people still like are looking at VR and AR, and I have no idea how you would even apply that. I mean, I remember the Pokemon, was it Pokemon Go, where everybody was running around with their phones. Y'all remember that? That's about
Like cars.
Yeah, that's about the most recent thing I think that all four of us here can like look back on and go, well, that was weird. Because I went to a city, and I'm walking around, and it's got like shops that are on the sidewalk. Remember that before the pandemic, there was actual stores open along the sidewalk, and you could walk, and then maybe you go
You're
in,
making that
maybe
up.
you don't.
You're not dumb.
That isn't true. Psycho.
Who would do that?
Yeah, the next generation after Matt is going to be like, "What's that? What's that?"
Well, we all live in the Matrix now.
Yeah. Anyways, I was
You
walking.
guys actually went to stores?
Yes.
You guys actually left your house?
And
What is
breathed
brick and
each
mortar?
other's air. We breathed each other's air. Can you
Yeah.
imagine?
People
Ew.
stood closer together.
Weird.
And if you got too close, it wasn't a fact of a virus. It was because you're in my bubble. Back
in
off.
my space.
Don't make me throat punch
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Get out of my
Arm's
space.
length was because you're in my personal space. Something that children don't seem to understand. They'll get right up on you and be like, "Hey."
Yeah, slobber on you. That's nice.
Yeah, but anyways, yeah, I remember walking around and seeing that, and just like all the accidents that I could imagine happening, because everybody's doing this, trying to find the Pokemon, but they could still see where they're going because it's augmented. But it was just the weirdest time to kind of see that.
Accidents were happening. I mean, people were getting hit by cars and falling off cliffs because they
because they weren't
were
watching
looking at their phone instead of their environment.
Well, they kind of do that anyway, though, right? I mean, that's been a complaint for a long time, is people walking down the sidewalk with their face in their phone and just not being aware of their surroundings. I mean, that.
Yeah, there's a good video
Yeah,
on
and
YouTube about a lady walking and she's on her phone, and she's in this other thing that's going to become a museum relic, by the way, called a mall, and she just
ooh,
face plants into the fountain. She's
yeah, I have watched somebody walk into a pole. They were looking at their phone and they walked right into a pole, and I mean, it stunned them pretty good.
Well, anyways, that's a nice wake up call to like, hey, here as 2020 comes to a close. I think we're adopting the phrase, thank God that's over. But yeah, but I think that was in 2017 is when the Pokemon Go thing was going on.
Something like that.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I think that's right. When I knew people, I never got into it, but I had a bunch of friends that did it. It was 2017.
yeah, AR was like augmented reality for those listening that may be like, what's AR? And it's okay. I mean, there's a lot of new terms we learn every day.
Pirate terminology.
Yeah, as Mitch just shared, B4H.
What's
I'm
jargon
like,
you're using? AR, VR. What's all this jargon?
yeah.
Speaking of it, I'm not going to go through all of these. There's a couple more though I do want to hit. But I think they're they're kind of on point.
All right.
Here's one for you: agile.
Yeah, but that probably doesn't mean what Laura and I are familiar with.
Why not?
And they say a term used largely by organizations that would like to be but aren't.
Well, you could say that around anything. You could use the word profitable in there. Come on. Fun to work at.
Here's one for you, Jason. OTT.
Oh my God. Let's not dive down that one again.
Otters? What?
The term OTT. And here's a quote from the article. It says, "In what way is a subscription video service over the top? And what's it over the top of?"
Mm-hmm.
It's basically over the top refers to any non-broadcast, non-cable, subscription-based video service. Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus. But I've said this for a long time. Broadcast television hasn't gone away, or over the top isn't anything really that different than broadcast television, because you'll see over time that these over-the-top style subscription services are adopting some of the similar approaches that broadcast television has always offered. You still get ads. You can still get ads on a lot of these platforms.
Unless you pay a premium dollar.
Unless you pay a premium dollar. But
Yeah.
even in that, conceptually, it's still, there's still a give and take taking place.
Yeah. Well, it's a good example
medium.
in Matt's generation versus ours. Like, I remember when you had, you get cable. It was great when it first came out. You know, you had the little flat thing. You had the little tick, 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 tick to change channels. You know,
Right. Little slider.
Yeah, there's a little slider thing. It was ridiculous. I know, Matt, you're like, what? I'll send you a picture. You'll laugh your butt off. Trust me. Everybody thought that was cool. And so, you know, but you had all these cable companies that were competing against each other, and they were using their own programming that they would show. And you could kind of see that it's still there today. Like, you know, if you look at History Channel, Discovery Channel, TLC and all that, they're kind of owned by the same conglomerate. So, but they still have individual programming. Of course, everything now is paranormal, this and that. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's like, this is what they offer. So you want that. And people were like, well, what if I just, look, I don't want TBS, but I like the Learning Channel. What, can I not get that and just pay for that? And cable companies were like, no, it's in our classic package, which was classically crap. And then the premium channels, that was your HBO, that was your Showtime, Cinemax, or Skinemax, whatever you were into after 12. And, you know, you had all that going on, which cost about the same as a Disney Plus subscription or Hulu Premium or Netflix now, by the way. So that's where all the price models come from. And now you have online streaming that's doing the same thing. Netflix has got its own programming. There was a day when Netflix had an agreement with Disney and HBO and all these others and Stars. I think now it's just Stars, which is why the programming on Netflix has become so much of them producing their own stuff rather than redistributing material.
The people stuff.
Yeah, Stars or HBO, because HBO ran off and did HBO Max, and Disney ran off with Disney Plus, and who, you know, all these people went.
Well, and
you have the same thing, though. My point is, you have the same thing happening that happened in the cable wars happening right now in the streaming wars. The model is the same. The monetary exchange is the same. People, nothing has changed.
Nope. The more it changes, the more it stays the same, right?
Right, exactly. You're still paying way too much money for all this crap. And I saw recently Apple TV said, get all of these things here with us, and you can watch Disney Plus. You can watch all this through Apple TV. It sounds like a great idea. Problem is, you're still paying for a Disney Plus sub, a Netflix sub, Hulu sub. It's not, now you're paying another. Yeah.
And you're adding the layer of Google is now throttling those that don't want to pay to play.
Yeah, because the internet's a pipe, if you will, and like you either get a
tubes.
garden hose.
Is tubes? Is it a set of tubes?
It's a set of tubes. Yeah,
Yes.
If they break the tubes, internet's all over the floor. You're getting a mop. It's a mess. Everybody's sad that day, which was Monday. And I'm not going to mention. We all know solar winds. How does that affect me? You won't know for 3 months, but it will. But that's the case when the internet breaks.
You're talking about the IT company, right?
Yeah, well, it's their software that was that. The story broke Monday, and but I saw it on Reddit Saturday when they announced the White House had a security briefing. And when the White House has a security briefing on a Saturday, that's never good. Somebody got bombed, something broke really bad. The president tripped. I don't know. It's just
Somebody has to fess up.
Yeah, somebody got caught with somebody's secretary, you know.
Okay. On that note, I'm just going to do two. I'm going to do two more of these, and we move on.
Yeah,
Let's run from that subject.
Cookieless future, and of course, we know that's driven by the fact cookieless. You know that we all know that's driven by Google.
Yeah.
And the article says, in reality, the industry will find other ways to track people. Be real.
Well, they've already done that. I mean, the cookie's old. They've already found other ways to track people. They don't need a cookie on your browser to track you and your behavior. We don't need that. If we wanted to really do that, we could do that with your browser ID. We could do that with every phone has what's called a MAC address. So we know that that's your phone. They're kind of like fingerprints. People watching this right now are like, wait, what are you talking about? I'll tell you that I had a meeting today that this actually came up, believe it or not. The solar winds thing and all this that we're talking about right now came up. And we were talking about TikTok, and everybody was like, well, isn't TikTok going to get shut down? And I'm like, yeah, no, it's not. And they were like, well, yeah, but because they were worried about the data, where it was tracking. And I told everybody, like, they've had your data since 2004. So being on the internet's like changing your pants in the front yard. It doesn't matter anymore. It's already there. It's already happened. So
Thank you for that, Emmett.
On that note, I'll go to the last one, which seems appropriate.
it's how I move Mitch along.
When Jason starts talking about dropping his trousers in his front yard, that's when I know it's time to.
Yeah, don't make me change the camera angle, man.
I'm never driving through his neighborhood.
Okay, last one, and I find it very appropriate. Pivot.
Yeah. I think of the Friends episode where they're trying to move the couch up the steps.
Pivot.
Oh, and I will close with this, quoting the article. Hopefully, one day soon, this word will conjure up only thoughts of friends or a dance class.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we've all sufficiently been inundated with words we don't want to hear anymore ever in 2020. So many in 2020 we just don't want to hear anymore. Next year in 2021, let's find a new thesaurus.
How about if we just speak English and call things what they are?
I think in 2020 we redefined a lot of words too.
That's true.
A lot of our words don't mean what they used to mean.
Oh, no kidding.
And
which has been a struggle for our generation.
It confuses old people. Stop it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and I won't say what the words are or get into it because it's just too political. But yeah, there's been words that are in our industry in tech they want changed that we have used since the birth of the internet in '83. And it's like, no, nobody's going to understand what we're talking about. There's been words that we have used always that mean that. It has no racial inclination or any other political meaning behind it. It just is what that is, and it was never made that way. Yeah, lots of things have changed. Anyways, if you want to know what those are, go to nerdbrandagency.com/podcast, and you can leave a comment there or like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Help us get a vanity URL as well. You can find a link there on our website in the footer. Go there, click it, like, subscribe this video, and click the bell notification icon to get notified about more whenever we upload these things because we are lazy and it's Christmas almost. Anyways, moving on. So elements of storytelling, theme and dialogue. So I'll read through this because I wrote it down because I'm terrible about getting this memorized, and Alex appreciates it when she's doing the edit that I put things in. So here on the podcast, we continue our love of movies, the discussion of that and all things nerd, as we believe it's the culture of the day. So in this second part of the 3 series, we're discussing the elements of storytelling. In this episode, it's theme and dialogue. So often the term brand message is something that sounds philosophical, not tangible. So your theme is the message and dialogue is your ongoing relation to your customers through your brand's positioning. So first up, theme, message, and position. So a theme is a story in a setting where the story is taking place. I use the analogy here, whether it's in England or World War II, then off to the fantasy world of Narnia. It's a story that's maybe based on true events like Wolf of Wall Street. So the impact of the theme has a great influence on how the plot is being perceived. So do you want your audience to be tense, afraid, excited, happy? I'll stop there and ask you guys, what's your favorite movie genre? Horror, suspense, like something like suspense, a drama, what do you guys like to watch?
Cartoons.
All right. Looney Tunes or anything like, Animaniacs or
let's see.
Like how far back?
Okay, so yeah, this will date me, of course. Foghorn Leghorn and Wile E. Coyote.
Oh, the classics. Looney Tunes, man. Classic Looney Tunes.
And Bugs Bunny. Because when you go back and you watch Bugs Bunny as an adult, well, you missed a lot of things when you were a kid. Well, right over the head.
You mentioned Animaniacs, Jason, and which was kind of the rebirth of the whole Warner Brothers animated genre sense of humor.
And they're back now.
Yeah, and you watch those as a child and you watch those as an adult. The same with Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies, and those were written by adults, generally for adults. And when you think, especially the original Looney Tunes cartoons were shown either right before or right after a feature film. And especially back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, 30s and 40s primarily, the audience was primarily adult. So those were written for adult consumption, not adult in the
Well, no, they were written.
sense, but
They had
a grown-up sense of humor.
they were pointed at children because as a kid you super enjoyed it. You thought Bugs was just hilarious,
Right.
you know? But at the same time, a lot of things he said went over your head.
Yes.
And that was for the poor adult that was sitting there stuck watching cartoons with you. Unlike freaking Barney.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Parents want to jab their eyes out.
Yeah.
You know,
And your eardrum.
yeah. See, those cartoons were not made with that layer of appreciation for the parent in the room.
Yeah. I
Whereas
always liked
the older cartoons were.
Yeah. I always liked Animaniacs for that reason. They understood that adults were in the room. They were kind of stuck with the kid watching it. So they had this one shtick where it was a nurse and there was a doctor, and the doctor was kind of based on a character that was in an older movie that, by the way, this doesn't date Mitch, Laura, and I at all, because this is before I think we're even born, but the movie Dr. Strangelove. And so he was based on Peter Sellers. Thank you. It's based on Peter Sellers' character. And so, but he had a nurse that went with him, like a traveling nurse. And so anything that happened, or when she showed up, the Animaniacs, Wacko or Yakko, would go, "Hello, nurse." And as an adult, you know exactly what that was. That was a cat call. But to the kids, they're like, "Oh, I guess she's a nurse."
Hello, nurse.
Yeah, hello, nurse. Hi.
It was, and for you, Matt, it was equivalent to Joey from Friends going, "How you doing?
How you doing?" We made Matt do that. Hey, Matt, you want to do that again? You want to do it again?
I haven't seen it enough to really try and do it like him, you know.
Oh, Google it, man.
Yeah, you gotta get
You
caught
can do
up
it so well. You've got that radio voice.
He does. Yeah. For everybody who wants to know, it's like, who was that voice of that one guy that one time that said, "How you doing?" Where did he go? Oh, there he is.
You know, it's interesting talking about theme, and it talks about, I mean, your theme can have layers to it. I mean, like we were talking about the Looney Tunes and being, there's one layer of it that's for a younger audience, and one layer of it's that obviously is for an older audience. I mean, so thematically, you can craft your theme in such a way that you can direct it.
Yeah, it's
multiple
definitely
audiences.
Yeah, that's definitely on point, because a theme directs emotions you're trying to evoke from people about your story.
Yeah,
like everything has to have an emotional tug in order to work, including what any business. I don't care what the business is. You can be selling hot dogs. You got to get people. Why should I buy from you? Is the point, you know?
Yeah, because there's 6 other brands.
Right. Everybody can do what you're doing. So why you? What makes you? What's the differentiator for you?
Facts inform a decision. Emotion makes you act.
Right. Yeah. So one of the things is I pulled an example where Disney tries to do this from one princess to another, Snow White, and it's not Anna from Frozen. You know, they're very different, you know, in their characters and who they are and what they're saying, and so the themes are different.
Eyes are all the same though.
Huh?
Their eyes are all the same though.
Yeah, the eye. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like they got this tradition. Well, a fun fact is Disney always had the characters not have the mothers in the picture because his mother died, and so that's why he always never saw mom, apparently.
Yeah, but Disney also only wanted women's voices to be sopranos in all the music. If you notice in the older movies, all the songs are soprano. Any female voice is a soprano.
I wonder, is that, I'm trying to think back with Frozen, is that still the case?
No. An alto can sing that.
Oh, okay. I mean, and you wonder, I mean, that speaks to the different tastes maybe of different generations.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, very much so. I mean, and you've noticed the music has evolved too. I mean, because back when Snow White was made, it was these super high soprano voices with the low men's voices, and very rich musical scores. I mean, it was just very involved, whereas the music now is a little more simplified.
Dare I say maybe just a hint more popish?
Yeah. So yeah, it definitely is feeding into the current audience, which at the time that Disney began, that audience, they had a specific taste in music that he was hitting.
I think that's why they probably struggle with the live action versions of some of these classics, because when they did them then, the music and the message, it was great for that time and that audience. But as they try to transition that to the live action, it don't go well. Like,
Well,
Yeah.
you could get into the whole argument too of, instead of giving an audience credit for being able to perceive something in the theme that it was originally intended, but rather than trying to take something and pigeonhole it into the sensibilities of modern day, of the current day. This in it kind of, maybe you wonder if there's little bit of a lack of studios, and this gets into a broader discussion that probably we don't need to get into, but the inability of studios to kind of give an audience credit for being able to appreciate something for what it was originally intended, rather than trying to make it, make it pertinent to the current moment.
Yeah. There's a lot of movies that got remade that fairly were criticized for the dialogue, the setup, and the message, because every movie has a message. Like, I don't care what it is, they all are saying something. That's kind of the point. But the message is different, because when they start to revamp it, they lost a lot of meaning that was already there. Like, I brought up Mulan because there was a scene in the cartoon version where she's building her outfit and putting it on and doing all of this. And in the live action, exactly, cutting hair. And that was a very important, message that is being sent to that within that animation, both from a cultural perspective, but also for the audience at the time. And today they were trying to sort of get that, but they cut out the entire process of that and cutting the hair, and it just had no meaning. The scene had absolutely no meaning. And so there's things that are there purposefully that I think, because of the person that did it at the time, their view, their inspiration for putting it in there, we may interpret it today that it means something else, but whether they meant that it's the same way or not, they had a meaning there that also lended to the story's theme and how it would progress. So in tech, a great example is between Bing and Google and search results. If looking up easiest way to suicide, Google will pop up. I know I go way off the rails every time on the show just to get reactions out of everybody.
That was a turn.
Oh yeah,
that was a pivot.
We're pivoting.
Do we need to talk?
But if you Google like that term, and believe it or not, that's a term that happens. The results in Google is immediately at the top is the suicide hotline. For a while, Bing was like listing methods. The success rate. It's like, whoa.
Let's not be helpful in that way.
Just trying to be helpful?
Yeah, we're just trying to help.
What? They asked?
I just answered the question. You gave them a loaded gun. Dang.
The lack of intelligence in artificial intelligence.
Yeah, it's like, just because you have the information doesn't mean that person should get it. And I'm not trying to say censorship is good. I'm just saying, like, look, there's got to be wisdom here applied and some discernment here on whether or not that's a wise thing. But anyways, a good theme is a differentiator. I think we all know that. Competitor. See, we're breaking down. This is about the right time. Halfway through the day. Yeah, it's a Friday. It's when Jason can't talk anymore and needs help. So, if you make smartphones, great. Everybody else does. Samsung is as qualified to make smartphones as Apple is. So it's like we talked about with the hot dog thing. Anybody can do that. Why should I buy from you? What is the theme? What is your, I guess you could say, plot device? What is that? What's driving you to get out there and do that? For us, we like to make fun stuff. We like to do this. We like to make fun stuff. We like to talk about, projects. We build websites. We do logos. We do brand guides. We do videos. We do all this stuff because it's fun. Yes, we want to get paid. We are not starving artists doing this for the sake of the craft. That is not the case. You don't make money that way. You cannot pay bills that way. Sorry, Matt?
I said, for the love of the game.
Yeah, we just love doing this because, that's it. It's like if you were to Google ways to make money on the side, what our profession comes up, which is kind of disturbing because it's not it means that you don't really care that much about your marketing if that's what you're doing.
As a hobby.
Yeah, you've got a hobby, you're paying a hobbyist to help you market your hobby. That's really context there for that. Anyways, So it's always overlooked. So dialogue, let's talk about dialogue. So this is the way your audience and customers connect with each other and to you. So your choice of words and tone matter. Mitch is going to pontificate quite a bit here, I bet. So this all is always overlooked. It's the hardest part of brand development. We talk about brand message, and this is the core of what we mean. So can you write copy, that is words, for your web pages? You're probably going to go, yes. You're going to write it well? No. I don't. I'm not a copywriter. I'm not a person that's paying attention to the tone. I'm just saying stuff like, hey, Google and Bing had a suicide hotline fight, and everybody on the podcast went. So I'm not the guy to write the copy. But, is it going to relate to people and make them, kind of sense overall that, you know what you're doing? No, probably not. It's going to sound like Mitch brought up earlier. Here's all these marketing terms and buzzword marketing, brochures marketing. So we want to be careful of that. So the element enables the story to kind of resonate with your intended audience. So let's say a dialogue of the stories range from the audience. Why is that number one on the list? And this is for you guys. Why is it? It's just a basic question, right? Why is it so important to know the audience and who you're talking to?
Well, because if you have a PhD, you're not going to talk to a 5-year-old like you do your dissertation.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, people become comfortable with you when you speak to them in a manner in which they are accustomed to communicating. I mean, that is one way that they develop a comfort level with you, and it makes them easier to relate to you because you sound like them. As
a developer, Jason and I, we can chat to each other and we understand what each other is saying. But if I start throwing developer jargon at Mitch, he's going to get deer in the headlights on his face. And eventually he's going to be like, I don't understand a thing you said.
He does that all the time to us anyway. So I'm like, it's fair play. Throw it back at him.
Speak English.
Yeah. He did that to me yesterday.
Mackenzie, what?
Yeah. He did that to me yesterday on Slack. He throws out a bunch of crap and I'm like, you pretend that I know what you're talking about.
Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. What?
I speak the King's English.
Yeah. That's what you call it. All right. We'll CSS that. I knew a sales guy that did that. That was his answer for everything. Just CSS it. I was like, God, just don't talk anymore.
Mitch didn't know what he just said.
It's like that episode of The Office. Talk to me like I'm a third grader. Okay. Talk to me like I'm a first grader. Talk to me like I'm in kindergarten.
It just keeps getting yeah, and that kind of goes, but to Laura's point, like a PhD, how they respond to copy and that audience and everything. I mean, when it comes to the website, when I brought up copy on a website, there's this thing called a reading scale that's used for SEO that if it's too complex, nobody's going to read it. Like we're working on new copy for NerdBrand to refine our message and everything for our new site. And I was reading through what was written and I started tripping up on it. And not that I'm a gauge for like competency for reading copy, but during the moment, and Matt's laughing because I think he may have been there when it happened, but I was like, what? I couldn't put the words together about halfway through the sentence. And I was like, you guys need to tweak that.
Well, no, that's an interesting point because I mean, the value of good copy is, of course, writing in a way that resonates with your audience, speak to them in a way that they are accustomed and comfortable to being spoken to with. Anyway.
That brings us to the second one, though, the message.
Right. Well, but it also, I mean, we've talked about this a little bit too. I mean, in good copywriting, sometimes cadence and the rhythm of the words, and you hit on it, the rhythm in which you hear it come out of your own head or come out of your own mouth. There should be almost, not to lean too far this way, there should almost be a musical quality to it because that's why pop songs resonate with people.
Yeah, it looks like
it sticks.
It looks like Matt's got something to say. He's like, he's on the edge of his seat almost. What you got, Matt?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm just listening, just fly on the wall.
Buzz.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, good copy has it resonates partially because it speaks in a rhythm and tone that sticks the same way a good pop song does.
Yeah.
Or even a bad pop song. I mean, you hear the term earworm.
Don't
I mean,
you dare! Don't you do that to anybody on this show or anybody listening, Mitch.
Okay. I'll refrain, but you know what I'm saying.
I brought up Anna from Frozen, but you didn't hear me go. I'm not gonna do it.
Okay. Don't do it. Don't do it. But I mean, I think you guys understand what I'm saying. It becomes comfortable, and you sit well with it, and you hear yourself maybe repeat it in your own head. It should be comfortable. And in that comfort is a bit of assurance, and it makes people feel like they get it. They're in on the concept. It makes people feel a little bit smart if they read good copy and it resonates with them because there's a sense of discovery. Like, oh,
yeah,
okay,
you always have that thrill. Sorry, Laura, go ahead.
It also needs to be consistent.
Yeah.
Well, for your brand, you speak in a language, in a timbre, in a rhythm, all those things consistently because that's what your brand sounds like. And I use the word sound even with copy that's read because you hear it in your own head.
I've got a great example of that. Here we go. Here's an analogy for those listening, especially it might help because when you hear brand message and what we're talking about, I mean, it just sounds very simple just to put words on paper and then just put that out there, but you lose the meaning. So think of an orchestra in a concert. There's this moment in the orchestra before they actually start playing the piece where all the instruments are kind of tuning up and they're all kind of getting their thing going on and just kind of sounds like a mess. Well, that is copy. That is you before it's placed into the hands of a professional to sharpen your brand message. The orchestrated piece, that's the message. That's the tone. That's it. And that's what's under, like, I recognize that. That's Bach. That's Beethoven. That's Mozart. But without a conductor, that is the person there guiding that message, which is Mitch's job in our organization as a creative director, then it's still, you could play Bach, but nobody knows when to finish or change. The flute section is not with the string section. Everybody's doing something different. And that goes to Laura's point about it all being together and unified.
Yeah, it gets async.
So
all the pieces fit.
Do what, Matt?
Future. Back to the Future when Marty starts shredding the guitar.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And he's like, oh, yeah, you're not ready for that.
Yeah.
Right.
Certain audiences expect certain things.
Right.
And even if you have the ability to give them more than what they're looking for, something different, something that, is more pop or whatever, obviously it's not always the best idea to go outside of those bounds. Bounds in this case are there for good reason. You get people they're expecting what they want.
Yeah.
That is so good. That is so good. And it sometimes brands get in trouble when they think, when they start to look like they think they're smarter than their audience, when they overshoot the target. You know what I mean? And it's
when you go from Johnny Be Good to Metallica, that's kind of jarring to anybody. I mean, I remember watching reaction videos now that Matt's generation is coming up and they're getting introduced to Aerosmith and Van Halen and all that. And when Eddie Van Halen died, there were people that were his age and younger that were going in and watching David Lee Roth with Van Halen back in those days when they were performing live the song Unchained. And these kids kind of paused the video and they were just like, wow, this is just fun. That was it. That was the comment. It was like, yeah, that was Van Halen. That was the point. They weren't this, like Metallica, they were kind of like, it's fun. They hit their beats best as a band and as a group.
Do I hear you dissing Metallica?
No, I mean, I love Unforgiven. I love
we'll
the Black Album, and I love S&M, not that S&M, but the live one where they combine the orchestra with it. One of my favorite artists is actually Evanescence with Amy Lee. I think her voice is just magnificent. And you put that in front of an orchestra, you will be just entranced by her. If you don't know who she is, look her up on YouTube. She has her own channel, and Evanescence has a channel as well.
Side note, and I have to mention this. If you've never heard the Scorpions rendition of Rock You Like a Hurricane done with the Berlin Philharmonic behind them.
Okay.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
Take notes, Matt. Go to YouTube later. That's okay. It's Friday.
They did a whole album.
Yeah.
There are string quartets now that are having, like, the lead singer of Shinedown and the lead singer of Flyleaf. They come in and they sing against this quartet. And like Lacey Sturm and Brent Smith both did a cover with them.
I'm trying to think.
I think Brent Smith did too.
I remember the first singer. I remember the first lead singer because Flyleaf has changed.
Yeah, Lacey Sturm Stack Down.
Yeah. So, but I remember the roaring that happened in that, and then the movie Live Free Die Hard. They got into that, and that was one of the songs playing when John McClane went to visit the other character at his apartment before he got attacked. And I was like, I thought that was really cool. But when that song is playing and then she starts to roar, it's like, oh my God. Like, it just is funny. I mean,
Lacey Sturm is one of the only female rock singers that you will hear actually do that growl that a lot of the guys do and do it successfully.
Yeah. They do. I know if I had a friend that he liked to listen, he would listen to Christian bands that would only that. And that's okay. Each to his own. You do you. But he listened to a band called Demon Hunter.
I called him.
Wow, what a name for a Christian band. Is that on message or what?
They're covered in tattoos too.
Yeah.
They're completely covered in tattoos. And they've got like the ZZ Top
there's like a lot of like that now. Christian.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
One of my favorites was We As Human. And Lacey Sturm did a duet with We As Human. Well, she was guest on one of We As Human's songs. And she and the lead singer Justin Cordell, I think is his name, they were both doing the growling thing in the chorus of the song. And
so I guess to kind of sum up like what we're talking about here, like the message, which is the second, like, the audience, there's people that listen to this genre or that genre, but the message is going to hit. The songs they can go across those genres if they're done well. Look at Taylor Swift. Country went to pop. I guess I'm not a Taylor Swift fan.
It's because for a long time and probably still now they kind of were almost one and the same.
Katy Perry was gospel music and then she went to pop. I mean, there's a lot of.
Well, then she went crazy.
Yeah, there's a little of that that happened. But I mean, I think one of the things where I brought up Van Halen because I'm a fan, but when they had a change from David Lee Roth to Sammy Hagar. Again, I don't talk right after 12.
The Red Rocker, it changed.
It was still good.
It was still good.
It was just different,
but in a different way.
Different, right?
Yeah, right.
And it was a whole different band.
They didn't get a platinum and gold album till he came in anyway. I mean, 5150 was like, bang, here's a platinum. But David Lee Roth was on Joe Rogan a while back on his podcast, and he explained like why the difference. And he said he talked about his songs like Unchained and Ain't Talking About Love, and he all his works, and why, because he's very anti in that way, whereas Sammy Hagar comes from a background of about love.
But right.
So all his songs are like about it and relate to it, but David Lee Roth's like the equivalent, I guess, to anti-culture or whatever you want to call it. But he's just kind of like, no, I ain't talking about love.
He's about the good time.
Yeah, and then Sammy Hagar goes out there.
For teacher.
Yeah, Sammy Hagar goes out there on OU812 about like, how do I know when it's love? But it was the same audience. But the message was different. So that'll conclude.
And a lot of them still bought in.
Right. So it can happen, but it's got to be done really good.
It's because there's still an anchor point.
Right.
And with Van Halen, that anchor point was Alex. It was the three other members of the band: Alex, Michael Anthony, and Eddie. Mm-hmm. Those anchor points were still there. There was still enough of that original formula, if you will, that made people say, yeah, okay.
Well,
and you add into the fact that Sammy was still had become pretty successful in his own right.
Yeah, but
had very little to have to prove.
Not to kind of go down the trail too far on this, but I mean, Van Halen started as a cover band. They didn't really start as their own. They were doing like bars and clubs and playing other people's stuff. And before they got to their own, I mean, that's how everybody kind of maybe starts, I guess, but they admit that, so that's why they were able to kind of make the transition, because they were like, oh, we can play whatever. And he could. I mean, we all know Eddie Van Halen was basically a rock god. I mean, he could have played whatever, so here's a guitar. Watched him on David Letterman playing with Paul Schaefer and just doing their version or just instrumentally of the Jump. I mean, it was just nuts. But anyways, Matt's just listening to this going like, I got a lot of YouTube watching to do.
He's like, what do you all listen to?
Well, and I can relate to Matt a little bit in regard to you all talking about contemporary Christian music, because
Demon Hunter and all that. Yeah.
When I came up, when Christian music first started to really take off,
Amy Grant,
Stryper was the harder edged Christian music side of the ledger.
Yeah,
and it's like you listen to it now, and it's gotten so much bigger and so much. Wow.
Gosh, as somebody who grew up listening to Aerosmith, Black Sabbath, and the harder stuff, I was never so more delighted than when some of the Christian bands started doing things that I like to listen to. I mean, yeah, because Amy Grant she started the industry, really. She was the one that really got it kickstarted, and she dealt with
and Michael W. Smith.
Yeah, but because she was in two different genres, she really got ripped a lot about, well, you're not really a Christian because you're on their side.
And Stryper crossed over too.
Well, and Petra and Stryper, they got ripped for, like, the lead singer of Disciple. Disciple is one of the harder rock Christian bands. And the lead singer for them, Kevin gets ripped a lot for, you're not a Christian. What are those lyrics you're singing? And he's like, do you actually listen to the lyrics?
Yeah. Well, that happens all the time. There's a big difference between a Christian band and the artist that's a Christian. Evanescence went through that. Amy came out and said, like, look, we're Christians, but we're not a Christian band. We're not producing Christian music. You're not going to play this at your youth group. And they had Lifeway and other stores. They had a hard time with that, and they pulled the music off the shelf. And to
Amy Grant got dropped from Lifeway.
Yeah, so to each their own. But that's the message is like, again, it can segue from that audience and attain a new audience. Well, we see that in film. Marvel's doing that right now. Phase 4 is not going to look like phase 3, but I kind of want to go back before Mitch jumped in over Matt. Matt, you had something.
Sorry.
Shoot, I don't even remember what was it. Oh.
Sorry.
Yeah, don't worry about that.
Have a senior moment.
Yeah, just next time tell Mitch to shut up. I got a point to make.
It must have been nothing because I don't even remember. So.
Yeah, we were in the midst of talking
about a Christian band, wasn't it? Wasn't he going to say, you were going to say something in regards to the harder rock Christian bands that
I don't know. I remember I said I know a good bit about Van Halen. And then also on top of that, like Demon Hunter, Evanescence, Flyleaf, all these, like, I still have that on my phone right now. So even though they're not really coming out with new stuff now. So I'm tracking with everything you guys are saying. So,
well, I started listening to Icon for Hire a few years ago, and they started out as a Christian band. And then the next thing I know, she's dropping F-bombs in the middle of the song. And I'm like, wait, excuse me? What?
Yeah. Have you heard
Yeah. What were we going to say, Matt?
Yeah, there's, I was just going to say a similar thing is a band called Beartooth. And I forgot the lead singer's name, but he's from what was originally a Christian band or Christian-esque Attack Attack. And now it's the same way. It's just.
Yeah. Well, like Lifehouse, the lead singer of Lifehouse is Christian. And there's undertones to their music that he writes that is Christian. But the band is not Christian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, one of the things that I didn't like, and I don't, kind of going off topic here, is, Christian culture. Christian culture tends to appropriate the secular culture by changing just a few words here and there. And that's not original. So in relation, I guess, to kind of keep it on topic for the podcast for this, when we're talking about brand message, that, don't do that. Don't take somebody else. I mean, let me say this. So Dr. Martin Luther King had a vision. We all can agree and adopt that vision. That's okay. But you can't take his speech and rewrite it with you in there.
Yeah.
And try to distribute it. Because the fourth thing that I had on the list here, and this will be the last one, is the distribution and channels of your message. What do you do? What's the best way to distribute content. We talked about, I had a marketing committee meeting today with the chamber, and that was brought up about distribution, because it's a thing. I mean, everybody asks about this. So it's nothing I'm telling anybody that's different. Anybody's not heard. Like, what should we do? Should we do social media? Should we do video? Should we do a website? Should we do a newsletter? What do we do? Started off the podcast talking about content anchors. This is our content anchor, meaning this is where we plant our flag. This is what we produce. This is the messaging that we talk about with these things to share to our audience on how we approach what we do to you with your brand, with your company. And so it's a lot more effective than a blog. Newsletter will come eventually. We'll have a newsletter. We don't know what it's going to be called. We just don't want to pepper people with nonsense right now. And, we'll probably get something like out in the first quarter. I know John and Matt will have something. It's on their brain, and they're probably anxious to do it, but we just don't know. Like what you say to our points earlier, you just don't want to blah. So, but distribution, like what has been the content channel that you guys have received content through that you like, whether that's a newsletter or YouTube channel? Like, what do you prefer to like when you're just kind of like wanting to consume something? Where do you go?
It depends on what I'm wanting to consume.
Right. I mean, the interesting thing is that there's been a convergence in as far as channels go, because you can go to the internet and find anything, and within the internet you can find newsletters, you can find blogs, you can find vlogs, you can find longer form video.
Explain what a vlog is, because I know that a lot of our audience may not like. I'll start with this. Like, we have a podcast, and it's the audio, because we, guys, remember, this is not only video, we have audio. So I keep forgetting myself. So anybody out there listening and not watching this, I am so sorry if I have not given any descriptions as to what the crap is going on. But there's a podcast and there's a vodcast, and we're doing a vodcast and a podcast. So Mitch just said blog and vlog. What's the difference between a vlog and a vodcast or a blog or whatever?
It's the medium in which they manifest themselves.
Yeah, basically. But obviously one's video only.
Okay, don't swallow a dictionary. Actually, tell them what it is.
A vlog is basically where somebody through video.
Blogs.
Blog. Well, essentially.
What's a blog?
It can be thematic, a story, helpful information. It doesn't go on too long. It doesn't have chapters. It's basically something you sit down and digest in 10, 15 minutes, maybe.
Yeah, they're called on YouTube. To Matt and I are alike on this. We consume a lot of YouTube. Mostly because, at the end of the day, I'm watching it through Apple TV, and I'm just on the YouTubes, and I'm just watching documentary. They're called video essays, and I've turned into my father. I've started watching people build crap. I had this conversation with Laura yesterday about like these videos of people using tools to either forge iron or steel and turn it into something, or wood or whatever. And I'm just watching it. And the equivalent was what, Laura? What show on PBS is the equivalent to what we're seeing on YouTube now?
Oh gosh, now you asked me, I went blank.
It's This Old House.
Happens to me all the time.
This Old House. Yeah. This Old House.
Yeah. My dad would watch hours and hours of This Old House with Bob Vila and just watch him make cabinets and all kinds of crap.
And didn't Tim the Toolman Taylor kind of come from Bob Vila?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. There was definitely an inspiration there.
Yeah. So that's now on YouTube, and that's kind of a thing now, is to watch that. And, I don't know how to make anything. Like, that would be a comedy skit. It'd be like just like breaking stuff over and over and then just into the video.
Something breaks on my car, that's where I go. YouTube.
Yeah.
How do I fix this? How do I tear it down?
Yeah.
Yep. How do I fix this?
So those would be a vlog. It's just a bite-sized piece of content driven
video.
Yeah.
It's vlog is video. Blog is
written.
Yeah. So, but it's all thematic.
And pod is heard.
Yeah.
Pod is heard and VOD is viewed.
A great example of what a podcast is, which is amazing to me today. People still don't know what they are. But a podcast, if you're familiar with the movie Wayne's World, it's basically Wayne's World, but for radio. Because Wayne's World was all about like.
That was a vodcast, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, no,
television.
It was. So. Yeah, right. It was public. It was public access cable.
Yeah.
Which in some ways you can look at as being the father or grandfather of vodcasting.
Yeah. Yeah. Imagine having your own show. You just have to have, I don't know how it would work, how you have an agreement so you could broadcast on channel 5 that nobody watched, you know, and then it was like at night and all that. And it's not done anymore, I don't believe, but yeah, I mean, that was it. And Wayne's World for Matt, who's probably sitting there going like, what again? Yeah, check out Wayne's World. It's great. It's funny. I mean, you got Bohemian Rhapsody in that car, that one scene with him and Dana Carvey. Anyways, so
Dana Carvey's church lady was my absolute favorite on SNL.
So yeah, because the characters actually they did start on SNL, I believe.
They started out as SNL characters. Then they got their own movie.
Yeah. Two movies.
2 movies.
Yeah. So it was like, yeah, but that's really how podcasting, I believe Steve Jobs described it that way when he was talking about it, because Apple announced it on iTunes, like, hey, there's Apple Podcasts. What are they? Oh, Wayne's World of radio.
So you all were spoiled children, because we had like 4 channels and bunny ears. There was
when I first grew up. Oh yeah, cable was around, but but it was usually for people way out in the country that couldn't get broadcast TV. They had cable TV. That's where it started.
Yeah,
that's where it started anyway.
You didn't get anything that you didn't carry in a bucket.
Yeah, I don't subscribe to. I'll be honest. I mean, I have Amazon Prime. I don't pay for Hulu, obviously, or YouTube. There's YouTube Premium. I don't even know if that's a thing anymore. It keeps asking me about it, but I'm like,
yeah, it's still around.
It's still a thing, and they're still beating that dead horse.
Yeah, and it's like I had Hulu for like 30 days, and I was like, nope.
Well, you know what? I had Netflix for about a month, and I was like, is there anything on here that is not rated R? And so,
I mean, I want to watch The Witcher. I want to see season 2 of The Witcher. I admit it. I'm one of those, but and I do want to watch HBO Max just to get the DC films and stuff. And you know, Disney Plus only interests me not for Mandalorian. I know a lot of people are like, "That's an awesome show." It's like, I get it. Mandalorian's an awesome show.
It is. It really is.
I've seen 1 episode because my son made me.
But I want it because I want to see WandaVision, and I would like to definitely check out the series Loki. That's why I want Disney Plus. But I think that, you know, unlike cable, you subscribe to it, it's a lot harder to cancel it. Whereas these subscription shows like retention, I hate to see what that looks like on the numbers for retention. But anyways, so, but
I think it truly depends on content offset with price. Because I know there's a little app that if you don't have, because like I unplugged, and so all I have is a Roku.
I did too.
And if you don't have a cable subscription for TV, then you cannot get the Hallmark channels. It's Christmas. I want to watch my stupid Hallmark.
I want to watch my stories.
And I can tell you, first 10 minutes it's boy meets girl, second minute, and then we have the fight, and then we get back. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's always the same.
But
he's gonna mess up. She's gonna get mad. He's gonna chase her through an airport.
Yeah, but Christmas is perfect for all that schmaltz. It's perfect for that.
Yeah.
Hallmark is one of them that it's really challenging to find the app that works best for you, because they're Hallmark Now. You've got to wait 2 or 3 months for the new movies to come out on Hallmark Now, which seems to defeat the purpose. It's only $5 a month for their app, but it's not worth it because you're not getting the new content. So if you go to like the Friendly app, you're getting the new content, but their app is junky. And so it's $7, I think, a month for their app. And so value again comes into play.
Yeah.
So, you know, then if you do Amazon Prime, you have to pay for Hallmark on top of Amazon Prime. And that is a deterrent. Right. So it's, you know, when you're building one of these apps and you're pushing content out, you've got to think about your audience. You've got to think about, okay, yes, everything on my app is a year old. Yeah, they're going to continue to pay me monthly for my app. No, they're not. So you have to think about your user ahead of, sometimes before, what your goals are. And so you have to analyze your users' habits and what you're seeing out of your users, and then determine your course of action based on that, instead of what seems to be they willy-nilly throw out their app and the price and just hope people will bite.
Well, you almost get the impression these days that some of these networks are trying, rather than trying to analyze their audience and basically feed what that audience, the desires of that audience, they are trying to drive the audience in a certain direction to some degree. It feels like, anyway.
Yeah.
But all of this speaks to what we're talking about as far as theme and developing copy and story and everything that resonates with the audience, that resonates with the people that you are trying to talk to. All this, this all kind of speaks in that same kind of direction. I mean, the segmentation within these different television apps, there's so many now. And talking about how you subscribe to the Hallmark channel because for a certain reason, but they're not feeding that hunger you have. Well, right. What first gravitated me toward Netflix originally was you could get a DVD of any movie you could almost think of. And I'm a big movie fan, so I've got a huge library in the back of my head of movies I'd love to see again that I don't have access to because you don't see them, it's just whenever you're fortunate enough to see it pop up on one of your favorite apps or channels. Mm-hmm. Well, then they got into the Netflix app, which was kind of nice because you still didn't have that same selection, but it was still a lot of the cool stuff that you always wanted to see but never could catch it. But now they have so much of their own content that they're pushing. All of the other films have kind of started to fall into the background.
Yeah.
Well, folks, that's why I bought your app to begin with, to your point, was because of all of that. I didn't come here to see what you're doing. I came to see this library of films that you used to offer.
And
it's like the last episode we talked about that. The Blumhouse, I don't know if y'all are familiar with Blumhouse, because Laura and Matt, you guys weren't on the last show, but Blumhouse makes all those horror movies. And the guy that runs it was like, it doesn't make sense to make a $150 million film for Netflix distribution only. Mm-hmm. The costs are so high. Yeah. Like you talked about, Laura, the value is not there for the party to make it.
And then you see like my favorite show is on this particular app. Well, then in the background, that company sells that movie to someone else or that series to someone else, and then it shows up on a different app. Mm-hmm. And you don't have access to it where you thought you had access to it, and you have to switch apps to see it. So it's, there's all this business going on in the background too that you're trying to keep up with. And I think I've got 4 different apps on my Roku right now that are in the 30-day trial that I'm trying to figure out which one I'm actually going to watch.
What's interesting is you're talking about content moving from place to place. Peacock, the new NBC app for shows and movies.
That's one of them.
a bunch of the shows that have been in other places, starting in January, The Office, you'll only be able to get it on the Peacock app. And that's going to happen with some of their other properties. Like I'm a huge 30 Rock fan. If anybody remembers 30 Rock, God, what a great show. And the movie studios, Paramount has their own channel. All their stuff starts to
HBO.
Pretty soon it's going to be just like your old TV dial where you could only get certain programs on certain channels like ABC, and it's all coming back to that.
Yeah.
They're all, whereas they were all distributing it to wherever they could get it because they didn't have their own apps. Now they're all bringing it back, and you're going to have all these different apps that are like all your different channels you used to have. It's all going back to that.
But the problem is it's like $12 a month for this one and $5 a month for that one and $7 a month for this one. And it gets to be too expensive.
Yeah. And the market is going to have to evolve in that respect.
Well, we talk about all these apps and stuff. Take it and flip it through the lens of like movie theaters for a second. You've got the Peacock channel, which is NBC. ABC is owned by, you need to really look at like who owns who, and you start to realize what's happening. It's proprietary content that is being distributed by said media company, because they're not bubble burst. They're not news organizations, they're media companies. So, Disney is a media conglomerate now because they bought Fox. So the content that's on Disney Plus is only Disney stuff. This is this stuff. Movie theaters, were banned from being that way. I don't know, 1930s or 40s, where
And back when the studios used to own theaters.
yeah, well, that's now changed. That law has been wiped. So it's quite possible we could see theaters that are Disney content only. Like the real world version of that app and its content now will be also in the theater. And I think that's the evolution. And I hate to say this, I'm sorry, Mitch. Pivot that will happen.
Curse you!
Yeah, because we used it a lot last episode. It was really funny. Like we started this episode out with Mitch talking about buzzwords. In the last episode, what did we talk about, Mitch? It was all about how movies in the theaters are having to pivot and what that looks like. And we used that word. We're hypocrites.
Sorry. Sometimes the right words are appropriate for the moment.
Yeah. And, but, if you're a business owner, you're like, yeah, but I'm not a movie theater. How do I apply this? Or what do I do with that? Social media is still a channel to kind of go on. But, business pages are not getting a lot of reach, if none at all. If, it's just kind of sad, honestly. But I get it. Facebook was made for people. So what do we mean by, as your brand, you need to come forward more as the owner. You are the personality of your business. And so therefore, if you need help figuring that out, that's what we're here for. It's okay. I'm not asking that you become the David Lee Roth of your company and do a bunch of high kicks and stuff, because, Lord knows I can't do that. But at the end of the day, it's like we have to develop that. How does that sound? What's that tone? Who are you talking to? Because just getting more customers is always everybody's goal. That's the aspiration. That's an aspiration. We want to be able to.
And two, you have to, if you've got more than one person writing content, you need to make sure that the voice is unified, because I've been in groups before that there's more than one copywriter and they both have very distinct styles, and you can pick it up and read it and who wrote it.
There was
having a unified voice.
There was a Conan O'Brien. I've always saw him as the underdog of Tonight Show hosts, and but he he Zoom bombed a corporation's board meeting. And you can go look this up on YouTube. It's on his channel for his show. So he's
the one that made us have to have passwords.
Yeah, it's his fault. Yeah, because there's other people that thought it would be funny to Zoom bomb into like school corporation meetings, and that's illegal. So the FBI would call and say, "Hey, youngin, no." But anyway, so he goes in and he does. But he goes in and he does this, and shows up, and everybody's like, "What?" And the CEO's there, and he's in this outdoor bar cantina, but kind of by himself in the background. So it's not one of those fake backgrounds. He's really there, but the logo is on the bar. And so Conan kind of makes the crack like, well, maybe that's why the company's not doing so well this year and quarter, because the logo and the company and the CEO's on a bar, at a bar, It's just he just starts riffing on them. And the whole thing about the meeting, he's reading the company's website copy during the meeting, pretending he's one of the board members. And I don't know if they caught on to it. I'm sure they're a great company. I don't know anything about them, but it sounds very dry. And the people that are there, you could see the personalities there when they saw him and their reactions. It's like, it's real people. That whole thing. I hate that human is one of the buzzwords you mentioned, but I think the meaning behind that is what I'm saying is that lack of connection is that your website, your marketing material can be very faceless and cold, and just, you can't connect to it. But if you do things like this and bring that out, okay, I can relate to them. I can work with them. I could see them doing this or that for me because we have similar interests or personalities mesh, You're
communicating in a way that I understand, that I can feel, that I see a little bit of myself in.
That copy he read, I was like, oh, that is the classic brochurese you find on any business website. And it didn't, it was done in a joke, but with my ears and what we tend to listen for, it was a great example of like, oh, that's awful. That's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't
well,
matter.
And the fact that nobody picked up on it, first off, I'm sure that somebody in the room was like, wait, who's this guy who hired him?
They didn't know that he was reading the copy. They didn't know that he was reading their website copy. That's how.
And so being unfamiliar with their product and unfamiliar with what message they have out there.
Yeah. So
that's bad.
it's bad. Yeah. When you got a guy that doesn't have anything to do with what you do, and he's coming in and he's riffing and pretending as a comedian, and he's reading your website copy and you don't know it, you have a disconnect between you internally with your brand. That means that is the same thing that's happening externally with those that engage with you as well. There's no.
What's ironic is we've talked about this ad nauseum, and that's the fact that a lot of companies and businesses, when they write their message that's supposed to be going outward to their audience, they're talking, when they write it and read it back, they're talking to themselves. And I've said this over and over again, that marketing is a lousy mirror for a company. In other words, it doesn't matter as much if it resonates with you as that marketing manager, or it resonates with you as a product development person within that company. It has to resonate with that end user or end customer of whatever it is that you're producing, making, selling, etc. That's who it's important that it resonates with. Yeah. So too often, I'm sure this website is just a case of people writing content that appeals to the author and not the audience.
Yeah, or it could be just a case of like, I got to get a website up.
Well, there's that too.
That's
just
always
fill it with something.
Yeah, always. I mean, got to put words there because that picture's on the left and it doesn't look right. Or
and then there's that misconception of, well, if I put a website up, everybody in the world immediately knows it, and they're going to come and they are going to just click on my website, and I'm going to make a ton of money off my website.
We've slapped our logo on it, so they know we're there. They know who we are, so they're going to buy it.
Yeah, your website doesn't sell, but but anyway,
it doesn't communicate.
Yeah,
it's like inviting people to your house and you didn't give them the address.
Yeah, but on that note, we're going to wrap this up. For those that want to know like how to talk to us, you can go to NerdBrandAgency.com and you go to our About page. And this guy that's on the show here, Matt, he is an account manager. We don't have salespeople. We have account manager, marketing associates. Yeah. Well, for me, he's like down in the lower left, but
for me, he's over there.
Yeah. So anyway, Matt down there, talk to him. You'll find him on the site. You can reach out to him at NerdBrand Agency. Just hit up on the form that's on his profile. He'd be happy to talk to you about your website, your marketing, your branding, the messaging, whatever you need to it kind of covers what we're here, what we kind of want to fix for you. We do more than make logos. That's not our shtick, but talk to him. He'd be happy to, give a half an hour of his time to discuss for you at no charge to, improve for 2021. Matt, you got anything?
No, just a second what you said. I'm always down to give some time to do that. So
yeah, and obviously he's got a soothing voice. So if you want to pretend that you're talking to Joey about your company's marketing, branding, I mean, I'm sure he'll research after this podcast and he'll answer the phone.
He'll get that down.
Yeah, he'll get that down. He'll get that down. He'll answer the phone with, "How you doing? This is NerdBrand."
That'll be his new his voicemail greeting.
Just pretend. Pretend like they have some marketing questions. I'm always down to talk. So
that's right.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening, and go to nerdbrandagency.com/podcast to catch the latest episodes of the show. You can find us on iTunes and Spotify and all the other places. It's not hard to find. You can just Google it and find it. I mean, honestly, I don't know. It's not that we did any great job at SEO with that. It's just that when you look for a thing, call it the thing. That's an SEO secret. So, oh, sorry, my mic's over here. That's an SEO secret. So,
I told you that was creepy. Stop.
Sorry. Fine. You call it a thing. Just call it the thing it is. Don't try to be something else. Anyways, thanks for listening, guys. And remember, keep your nerd brand strong.
And Merry Christmas.